Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So with that being said, I appreciate it when you all hit the share button. I want to give shouts out to those who have hit the share button so far. Shouts out to the contractor, to Slipknot, Geechee Man, Compassionate and Callous, to Anubis, to Johannes Emmanuel, Don Calypso. I really do appreciate that. And I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I figured I would do this now because it's about, I assume that it's about 6 o'clock in the central time zone. Well, now 6:30 now at this point, almost 7. And 7 o'clock in New York. And y'all should be up and getting ready to go to work for the last day of the week. For most of you, it's the first day of the weekend for us over here. It's Friday afternoon. And and yes, Solomeo knows he's waiting on lunch hour because where Solomeo is, it's a few hours behind where I am. Whoever said the Middle East was behind when we're 8 hours ahead of Central and 7 hours ahead of the Eastern time zone, right? So next time someone tells me that the Middle East is behind, I laugh at them and I say, no, I'm afraid not, man. Do you know what time it is over there? Do you know what the date is over there? Because it's May 23rd. It's the afternoon of May 23rd, 2025 over here in the United States. It is the morning of May 23rd, 1955. Time travel, believe it or not, has been proven to be possible. It's just a question of how far back you can go and how much mass you're able to transport back in time. And it's not really just one president, but it's an entire political system in the United States that has managed to move an entire nation back decades in time, with or without Trump. Doesn't matter who's in. Although sometimes they accelerate the process. So anyway, with that being said, many of you have been keeping track of the Walaikum Salam, Levante Snelling. Many of you have been keeping track of the Diddy trial and Cassie Ventura's testimony much more than I have. I can only hear snippets of it through you. But over there in the news, you can probably hear more graphic details than what I would be able to hear where I am. No one here is talking about the Diddy trial for the most part, but except for you guys. And I am quickly seeing how Alex Fine got a really bad deal. And what I have heard debated oftentimes is whether or not Alex Fine knew what he was getting himself into when he got with her. Wa alaikum salam, Abdullah bin Bobby, you're just in time. You're just on time. So the question that's being debated is, did Alex Fine know he was getting himself into some mess? Did he know that this was coming down the pipe? Did he know everything that she had done? And what I suspect happened is that Alex Fine got with her and he did not know how bad the deal was. I think he knew that he was dealing with baggage, but he saw her as a victim. And then by the same token, she got up on that stand under oath, knowing that perjury is not taken lightly, especially if somebody else's conviction is at stake. And considering that maybe there would be proof that Diddy might have that she was already lying on the stand, if she lied on the stand. And so therefore, she decided, I better tell the truth. Not the truth. You know, people say, my truth. Women love to say my truth. She told Alex Fine her truth, but I think she said I better tell the truth on stage. And that is spelled D-A space K-R-O-O-F-F exclamation mark. Somebody type out the truth in the chat. I'm going to channel my inner Dennis Sperling. Not that we always agree on stuff, but His delivery style is funny to me, so I'm going to channel my inner Dennis Sperling. Somebody type the proof in the chat. Please don't misspell it, because we're not talking about Cassie's truth that she told to Alex Fine, and that's something else too. I actually felt bad for him, because I'm sure they got together before a lot of this red pill knowledge went mainstream. And that's right. Yeah, that's right. It's hard to believe that Boondocks is that old, man. No, 7Q turns out you're not late. And by the way, shouts out to 7Q and to Ryan G, because they're also subscribers to the Jet Black Air Lounge. If I'm not mistaken, they're first class subscribers. They get to see the confessions. They get to see other exclusive content. 7Q I want to give a shout out to you and Ryan G also, because you guys respond when I put the post up there. Now, the other subscribers are loyal for the most part, but you guys actually reply. Now, Ryan G does have you beat, but that's not necessarily your fault. But yeah, feel free to let him know about the Jet Black Air Lounge and how many confessions there are, if it's worth it, and you can tell me what more you'd like to see. And 7Q let him know if you got a chance to hear the very first Razor Blackenborough narration, which was on there, because the very first Razor Blackenborough narration is not on the YouTube channel. It's on the Jet Black Air Lounge, and it was about well, I'll let 7Q tell y'all what it was about. It was kind of funny though, a little bit. So that being said, yeah, don't worry about it, Abdullah bin Bobby. You know what? I'm going to let that slide this time because I know you were typing in the room. But then again, you don't have any typos, man. You apologizing for some typos you ain't got. I guess you're mocking my students. Is that it? Shout out to Abdullah bin Bobby Atayib. He's been an A1 from day one. He's one of my first subscribers here on YouTube. And he and Abdullah Abdulmalik Abu Thalatha are some of my original subscribers. And okay, now this one I'm gonna have to say something about your punctuation, bro. Yeah, I'm just about that. I can't say you misspelled anything, but I'm gonna have to tease you about some of that about that missing punctuation. Unless you're teasing my students, which would be really hilarious, because let me tell y'all briefly what happened there. Just briefly, y'all heard, some of y'all heard already, some did not. But out of 11 students, 6 passed, 5 failed, but all of them were complaining to my bosses preemptively to try to get me in trouble in case they failed, all of them. Now here's the kicker. Yesterday, this same time of day, I was getting ready to go and eat lunch. I sat in my office, had done everything I needed to do. I was just available for my students if they wanted to talk about or ask why they got the grades they got. I ain't changing the mother cuss word thing. But then, sure enough, someone knocked on the door as I was getting ready to leave. So I opened it. I was on my way out anyway. All of my failing students are sitting outside my door, and I was like, your timing is the worst. Hurry up and get in here. Let's get this over with. They sat down. And the two most backwards, better-winning students I got were doing the most interruption. Asking me about other students that weren't in the room and why did they pass. I said, Ninja, stop asking me about another student and he ain't even here. You know that violates protocol. You want me to discuss your marks with them? Stop doing that. With your ghetto behind. You failed because you wrote down enough wrong answers. You misspelled enough words and made enough grammar errors to not pass. You started off behind, not ready for the level, but then you said we improved. See, now there you go interrupting again. Yes, I said you improved, and I told you keep on going. You improved, but you improved slowly enough to not catch up. You just need more time, and that doesn't make you a bad person, but you need more time. You need another semester. Because, but the exit exam is even easier than this. No, Ninja, it's not. The exit exam has questions that are easier and harder than this. Close your mouth close your mouth, because you're about to interrupt me again. The exit exam has both. The exit exam has questions on there that are for native level speakers. Native level. You ain't native level, and that ain't your fault. But I told you I'd try to get you ready, but I needed you guys to do more studying when you got home. You have to be a Darfur, meaning a nerd. That's the Arabic word for nerd. Not Darfur, which is a region in Sudan, but Darfur. Somebody type Darfur in the chat. Let me channel my inner attorney Sperling. Somebody type Darfur in the chat and spell it right too. Y'all still haven't, nobody has still typed Dakroof in the chat. Still waiting on that. Dakroof. All right. And so now this is true. Yeah, this is. And I'm mainly talking about my students because my students, when they first come to me, all of them make this mistake. They don't punctuate. And I tell them, I don't care why you don't punctuate. We don't do it in Arabic. Yeah, I don't fivaguk. This is not an Arabic class. Don't come to me telling me about Arabic. This is not an Arabic class. It's not an Arabic lesson. And you're supposed to punctuate when you write or type in Arabic too. You got the same punctuation marks. A full stop, an exclamation mark, a question mark, but it's backwards. Commas, but they're backwards to us. But you still have them. Dashes, hyphens, quotation marks, brackets, parentheses. Stop playing with me. You're just lazy. And you want to stay lazy when you come into my English class, but this is an advanced English class, and you can't do that and still pass. So I was fighting that this term as well. And they showed up at 2 o'clock when I was getting ready to leave. And I had to stop them and shut them down and tell them, first, don't interrupt me. This is not personal. You're not bad kids, but you're stubborn. And that's why you're interrupting me now. You got those grades. You need more time. You need another semester. And the second time, the same class might even be easy. But if you really think you're good enough in English to pass this, then this is what you do. Take your little funky behind over to the institute that the university approves of. Sign up to take their test, their exam, and get the score that this university demands from that institute on that test. Bring it back to the registrar's office, and you will skip the entire preparatory curriculum and go straight into the core curriculum. Do that if you're really that good. Because I'm telling you now, if you go to somebody and you start complaining, you better be ready to complain in correct English to prove your case. You better be ready to do it. Go over my head? Yeah, go over my head, and they're going to ask you to say it in English. And when you start making these same mistakes in English, that's what it's going to be. We're not going to believe you. So, anyway, make a long story short, that's the gist of that. And that's why I've been teasing my students. And I think it's actually hilarious when Abdullah bin Bobby helps me to go in on them some more. Because he's known about my students from day one. Abdullah bin Bobby knows how they get down out here. All right, so salute to Passport OG. Yes, sir. Hold on a second. Let me find the right sound clip for Passport OG. There's a specific one I'm looking for. I know I didn't delete that mother. There we go. Yes. Yeah, there we go. Yep, that is the sound clip when Passport OG comes in this mother cuss word. And this one is also for Abdullah bin Bobby, 7 Cupid, Cornbread, and all of the other A1s from day ones like Malika Maybani, who's been, well, he's been in for a few years, but boy, has he really been paying attention lately. This is for you, gentlemen. There's a thing that I want to add to that that air horn sound effect. You know how normally they play it and you hear somebody go, Don DeMarco? I'm trying to get that sound clip added that says, you so black though. But I don't know where to go about finding that, even though, because Razor Blackenborough, and shout out to Razor Blackenborough, he's just not equipped to put that part in there. To add in the you so black though. Geechee man, what's going on? How's everything? Y'all, Geechee man's been sharing some of my stuff. Salute, blood. To answer your question, no, actually, Passport OG, I can't proofread Arabic completely. It takes me a very long time. I cannot read very quickly because Arabic requires you to read not only in the opposite direction, but you have to read sometimes in 3 directions. If they add the diacritical marks, you've got to read up and down as well as going from our right to our left. And it's just too slow a process for me. But there are some words that I'll know if they spelled incorrectly. One example is that, for instance, they'll take the feminine ending, which is similar to adding an A at the end of certain words in English, like Eric, Erica, as an example, or adding an ELLE at the end of certain words in English. Feminine ending. Well, there's a similar letter, but it's not the same, and it's equivalent to a regular H in English. But the problem is that the H ending means his. It's a possessive ending for his. You put the possessive at the end in Arabic. So if I were to say, for instance, okay, let's take the name Samir. If they put Samir, which is a male name, and then they add that at the end of the H, they think they're saying Samira, but in their own language, they're actually saying his Samir. No, they just screwed it up. They're supposed to add the feminine ending, which is just 2 extra dots at the top. Some of them, I kid you not, I wish I was making this up. Some of them misspell in their own language because they're too mother cuss word lazy to add 2 dots when they're typing or writing. Matter of fact, if you're too lazy, if you're handwriting and you're too lazy to put the 2 dots, you can just draw a solid line where the 2 dots would be next to each other. They're too lazy to do that. I wish I could make that up. And they got the nerve to sit up and act like, you know what I meant. And that's what they said in my office yesterday. Well, you understand us. Yeah, nigga, that's not enough. That's not enough. That's not sufficient to pass the exam. You got a writing component, a speaking component. You don't get enough points to pass just simply because I understand you. That's not enough. I can go to other countries and they speak English well enough to actually be correct. To be correct. And just about anywhere else I go, and I come over here to the Gulf, and you guys think just because I am understand, you ought to understand that makes you on par with somebody else that's been studying all their life in Germany and speaks English like I do, and German like the Führer. And then if they study Arabic, they'll speak it like you do. No, you ain't equal because you don't do equal work. Somebody type in, you ain't equal in the chat. I notice y'all don't do that. So anyway, getting back to Cassie Ventura. Cassie, I am pretty sure that Cassie told Alex Fine her truth, which is not everything. And that Alex Fine sat in that courtroom, which is what she wanted, by the way. She wanted him in that courtroom. And then she had to go ahead and tell the truth under cross-examination. And then turn around and watch Alex Fine get up and walk out that courtroom. She has run her husband off. It's not just about his pride. It's not just about that. It's about pride and the fact that he's literally insulted. He didn't trip and fall. That's something somebody can stand up and say, well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's embarrassing, but I'm the one that did that. No, it's more like, wait a minute. This is embarrassing because, bitch, you tricked me. Hold up. You told me that you were a victim, but here we go, right there. Shout out to Solomeo. It's not a victim. And not only that, but sending some of these mother cuss word text messages while she was dating, or even, I don't know about married to Alex Fine, but while she was dating him, she was going to some of these freak offs while dating him. And she had to go ahead and tell the truth because she knew that timeline was going to be exposed anyway. She knew that. Exactly, Lion. Shout out to LOM. She volunteered. She would not have been here. See, y'all saw that video where he knocked her around and that wasn't the end of their relationship. that is actually why she stayed with him. She knew she was bought and sold. She knew she was bought and sold because she sold herself to Diddy. So when he treated her like that, she said, well, that's what I deserve. So she stayed. Now, eventually she did get tired of it. She did get sick of it at some point. And she left. And then decided, I'm going to level up. She couldn't level up in money. That's Diddy. But she leveled up in treatment. And to do that, she had to, even if she didn't lie, she had to hide certain things. And she probably did have to lie. But if you remove, I said probably, so if you remove the lie, she had to hide certain things. Because some people are saying, well, you know, Alex Fine ain't no victim either. He signed up for all of that. He signed up for all of that. No, I doubt that. Now, y'all know me. I don't go around defending white men by habit. I don't generally do this habitually. But that's just not something I think that, I just don't simply think that he signed up and then actually married her, knowing all the stuff that came out in the trial. What I think he did was he said, okay, she comes with baggage. I'm going to be somewhat patient because most of us are conditioned to think that that's what it is. Most of us men have been taught that everybody's going to come with something. Now, you're not, by the same token, we men have been taught, white or black, Western men in general have been taught that you better not come with baggage because you're the man. But she's going to come with baggage, and if you're a real man, you deal with it. And I do know there's a difference between the depth to which white men are taught this and the depth to which black men are taught this. But Western men in general are taught this. Nobody's perfect. That means you're talking about women. But then, you know, you got to really, in order to really deserve love, you got to really be up there and really be a high performer and also have some good luck. I mean, no, you got to have a lot of good luck. That's what that comes down to. And they say, well, men Alex Fine are rare. Alex Fine ain't left yet. It's coming. Because the thing is, he stopped her from walking into traffic. And I want you guys to know something that I remembered hearing a little while ago. I was actually sitting up with my wife. And this woman was reading what another woman narrated about her trip to Dubai. A woman wrote about a trip to Dubai, and then some other lady read from it on her YouTube channel. And she started talking about what this woman did. She said, yeah, the tickets were booked and all that, and I went out there and then I met them, and they just did all kinds of nasty, weird. She said it was worse than what she thought. She thought she was going to be a little SLUT for some guys, but it turned out that she had to be that for some of them at the same time. And that it never stopped. And that they kept on going into more and more stuff. They wanted to, drop a deuce on her and all that funky stuff, literally, all puns intended. And then they even brought in a pet. Another species. And she said, in what she wrote that the other lady narrated, that she can't sleep. She feels really bad, and that she hears voices. And that the voices will not shut up, and they won't leave her alone, and they tell her to do even worse. And they tell her how worthless she is and what worse she needs to do. She hears voices. What the hell do you think that is? If somebody never heard voices before and all of a sudden they do hear them, what the hell do you think that is? Something you can hear but can't see. And that's after you do something that, let's say if you wanted to do magic, one thing that you can ask anybody is that if you want to do magic, real magic, you get in contact with something you can hear but you can't see, at least at first. And they always tell you to do something that is against whatever your moral compass tells you, like this. You're not made for that. Certain things that we're all not made for, no matter what we believe in. We agree on how wrong this right here on the screen is. And that leads to this right here on the screen. Shouts out to Solomeo for seeing that. What's good, GD? What's happening? So Solomeo sees this, and he's right. Cassie, Ventura, was doing stuff, and she eventually started to probably hear some of these same things. They may not have sounded like outside voices. They may have sounded to her like her own thoughts, but she tried to walk in the oncoming traffic, and Alex Fine stopped her. And now he's beginning to realize this B word has been bringing me all this baggage that she picked up from her own consent. Not only that, but Alex Fine is starting to realize something else. And this is where women have sat up and said this, and they're halfway right, but they're halfway wrong. He's beginning to realize, you know what? This guy can do all of these things to her. He can do these things to her. He's doing things I cannot do. I can't do them to her. I can't do them to other women, because not only are my own instincts against this, but of course all of the women would sit up and say, no, I'm not going for that. And they would be right to say that. Why the hell could he do this? Why could he bring himself to do this? And why was she with him letting him do it? What is that? What the hell does that say about her? He gets all this from her, and I got to deal with baggage. Now, this ties into something that Israel Young Lion said. He said that, and I'll put his comment up on here. Again, I'm going to come back to that. Actually, I'm going to go straight to it now. Let me go straight to it. This is what it comes down to. Women don't see men as equals. They don't just prefer some of us over others. We can see women as being humanly equal, and we can treat them as such. And if there's someone that we like, we can then treat them better than the others if they reciprocate. Ladies don't see it that way. We can treat many women as well as they will treat us, and then treat the one we like better as long as she reciprocates, like what I do. I'll be polite to people in general, men and women, and then I will treat my wife better, and she treats me better. But I'm not going to mistreat other women per se. I'm not trying to cause them any trouble, none of that. Now, I'm not going to go out of my way to help them either. I am a man, but I am my wife's man. I'm not their man. They owe me nothing, I owe them nothing. I don't give up my seat for them, and I don't ask them to give theirs up. It ain't my damn problem. I don't help them with their bags. I don't ask them to help me with mine. It's not their problem. I don't fiverguck, and I'm not trying to harm them. But I understand that women cannot see men as even being fully human if they're not attracted to them, and they're not attracted to most men. It's not as bad here where I live. If you have to speak to them for some reason and you're not bothering them and harassing them, then they see you as human. But in the West, they see every man as wanting them, and they also don't like most men. Now, what does that tell you? They see every man as wanting them, but they don't like most of the men they see. So automatically, they have this rejection attitude, even when it doesn't apply. And they can't see you as equal to the men they like. So what that means is that they're going to mistreat you if you're around them long enough. If they must treat you, then they're going to mistreat you. most of us are the guy they're going to mistreat. Alex Fine realized that the reason he's with this woman is because he's not equal. And she done already gave everything she had to give good. And so, no, to answer your question, Solomeo, I didn't say anything about that specific one. So Alex Fine is realizing now that him being married to her it's not because there's anything superior about him. It's because she sees him as an inferior. That's why he gets the baggage and he must marry her. These other guys got to bring the baggage and they didn't commit to her. He's coming to find this out. He's realizing this. This is why we got to have double standards. The double standards are there because, you see, in the double standards I'm talking about are designed because you got to protect yourself from the mistreatment that they're looking to dish out at you. If you have their attention at all, because most of the time the attention is not positive. This is also why I tell you guys, do not make approaches. Like what Lina MGTOW was saying, don't make approaches to them. Do not even validate their pictures. Don't even look at them, really scroll past them. Don't do this, because if you knew that most of them, with those little thong bikinis they got on, if you knew that most of them did not wipe properly, and that if you were actually physically there close enough, you would smell that they didn't wipe properly, it changes everything. If you knew that they airbrushed out the pimples on their butt and everything else before they posted the photographs, you would say, never mind, you didn't wipe properly and you got pimples on your booty before you posted that little bikini booty pic, never mind. This is something that you got to start thinking about. And there's wisdom in what I was taught years ago. If you feel inclined to a woman that's not permissible for you, think of the part of her that stinks. Now, I don't know how Abdullah bin Bobby told me that there was actually not such a sound hadith like that. And the funny thing is, it turned out that was, I didn't know that it was not sound, but it worked. It actually worked. And when you begin to really be able to judge them the way they judge men, where you start to see the flaws, the difference is they're trained to look for flaws. So by the time they get older, by the time they really become of age, they already are used to seeing flaws. They don't have to really look for them anymore. When they're young, they're trained to look for them. By the time we get into college, they've already begun to spot flaws, make them up if they don't see them. By 18, if you train yourself to look at their flaws, eventually you'll begin to realize that you don't have to look anymore. They jump out. When that happens, you don't feel like it's a bad deal to be alone, even when you're young. It's not healthy, I know, but it's a necessary evil until they change it. And so then it puts you in a type of driver's seat. Passport OG knows what I'm talking about. Lina MGTOW knows what I'm talking about. When you're not really that pressed to be with someone, though it is healthier if she's healthy, you begin to realize that you can negotiate, because now they got to come and convince you to give up the life you built for yourself and in which you are comfortable. Now they got to come and convince you, and then you realize, you know what a lot of you young guys are already beginning to realize in the first place. See, you already realize that it's not worth it to make approaches. A lot of you young guys realize that, and that's the reason behind what Lina MGTOW just said. 64% of men aren't interacting with women in the public. Enjoy More 85 posted up, they can't reject you if you're not there, and that's why they're crying about not being approached now at this point. But you see, most young guys don't necessarily like that. They just understand that's the better of the other options that are actually available. But when you begin to realize as a young guy that there's actually a comfort to being by yourself, then you know what happens next? Now even though we're wired to like women and women are wired to like men, you realize that they need to come to you with a hell of an offer. They need to come to you with something that's going to make your life better. Either they save you money and time, or they find a way to make you some money. You start looking at it like that. Are you going to make me some money, or are you going to save me some money? Now, my wife saves me money. She doesn't make me money, and that's not a job. But my wife does save me money. She does. I've been fortunate in that regard. My wife is a hell of a negotiator. When we got her ring, I bought it. That's my job. But she negotiated from 4,000 of the Qatari currency down to 2,500. She's a tough negotiator. And she even said, look, what does all this come with? Okay, tell you what. How about you drop the warranty down to 6 months? Cancel the whole polishing service. Don't even worry about that. Cancel that. All that maintenance, we don't even live here. We're not going to need the warranty. We're not going to need you to polish it. We got the polisher. So how about we start looking at just the ring? She's a tough negotiator. God bless her. So she saves me. We're about to travel next week. She's helped me save. But the thing is, you will then be in a position to negotiate for the same things. You will then be able to look and say, well, what is worth approaching them for? Because in all honesty, what you're doing right now, see, you know how it is that these women are trying to spread their misandry around the world. What do we need to do? We need to start spreading the do not approach ethos around the world. Don't approach. Don't do it. Don't approach her, and don't approach her dad about her. What's the reason? Trust you me, when these women start getting older and their dads are getting older and the dad is like, look, I'm not trying to take care of her the rest of my life. I'm going to die one day and she's going to outlive me, then what? But by that time, she'll be well past young enough to get married. Then he's going to start saying, I better go and look for somebody for her. Now, the problem is dads right now won't do that when their daughters are at an age when you prefer to marry. And they won't do it at that age. They wait till she's past that. But if enough of them are stuck, nope, it's not, nope, she's too old. You waited too goddamn long, dummy. If that's what winds up happening, then more and more dads are going to start saying, you know what, I better not make the same mistake with my younger daughter. Let me look for somebody for her now, because they ain't going to approach her and they're not going to come to the door. And a lot of dads are going to get upset because they're going to say, well, back in my day, and that's when you got to start saying, yeah, oh man, you're smart, you're wise about some things, but fuck your day. You were not wise and smart about this. You've been spending all these decades taking care of their mother and then taking care of them. You've been spending all this time doing you, and then the funny thing is you went and approached her and her dad to marry her so you sat there and offered a deal in which you did all this taking care. Now, if you got her to play her role in exchange, then it was an equal trade. Then that's fine. But in our generation, Dad, no, stop interrupting, old man. Let me tell you what happened now. Let me tell you what's happened recently. They're told that they don't need to do any goddamn thing, but we're still supposed to go and approach them and you to try to convince you to let her marry us. But we're not owed anything no matter what we do. You really expected us to go for that deal, Dad? In other words, you can change the dynamic to where, just like this misandry is spreading, the onus on them or on their dads to make the approaches will also start spreading. And they will start having to come to you and start saying, young man, you seem like you're doing okay. Are you in the market to marry? I'll consider it. Did somebody ask you about me, sir? Not yet. She probably will. Anyway, listen, before we do that, come see me next Friday. This is my address. Dinner's on me. I'm going to tell you more about it. And that's if they're that bold. See, in Durban, South Africa, amongst the Muslims, it's already getting there. It's already gotten there. Now, I only visited. Now, I was not in the market to marry when I visited. But my friend who's from there told me that that's what's going on. So I was like, yeah, man, that's good. That's better for the dudes. Absolutely. And so now this is amongst the Muslims. Most of them are from the subcontinent. Now, that's the funny thing. Amongst the black South Africans, the man is supposed to make the approach and he's supposed to pay a lobola. And the funny thing is that you got all these different languages in South Africa, just amongst the original black South Africans, our cousins. But the word lobola is understood in all the languages to mean the dowry. Man's got to pay that. Traditionally speaking, the women are difficult, but they all got somebody else's kids. Okay, now think about that. Even in the villages where they behave themselves nicely, they still have someone else's kids. But when it comes to marriage, you're supposed to do all this and pay all this lobola and everything else. And you're like, wait a minute, hold up. Okay, so ain't none of them not got some other man's kids, and I'm supposed to pay a lobola, a dowry. Man, fit the gunk out my face with that short bit. Meanwhile, the Muslim cats in India, the Muslim cats in Durban that are of Indian extraction are not all making approaches. They don't really have the numbers to do it anyway to where all the women can find someone. And what winds up happening there? You got dudes that are so focused on business and making it that on Fridays when they go for the prayer, the older uncles got to go and strike up a conversation, invite them for dinner, and then sort of let the daughter see them and let them see the daughter when she brings the food out. And the daughter's whatever the age is. And I'll tell you, I saw with my own eyes that they're quite friendly there. I ain't even talking about the original black South Africans that our cousins. No, I'm talking about the ones from the subcontinent. I mean, they've been in South Africa for generations, but they're from the subcontinent and they're Muslim, and I've seen them. They're quite friendly. Choosing signals. Now, this is only for the Muslim men out there, but what I'm saying is that you see that because the men out there their men are not out there making all kinds of approaches. Meanwhile, back where you guys live, look at this. That's what you're facing right now. Where you live, they're looking to be a part of a millionaire's rotation. And they're writing confessions about how they feel like it's better to be one of a millionaire's many than it would be to be the only one of a normal man, let alone a poor man. And most men are going to struggle financially because most people are going to. And this is why I'm saying to you guys to deny them their food. Shout out to Passport OG for putting that quote up there again. Deny them their food. The double standards have to be there. If they come and approach you, they're doing what they're supposed to do. But in the West, if you go and you approach them, you're doing something stupid. You're taking what's expensive and making it cheap. Your seed is expensive. Yeah, it's expensive. That's why a fertility clinic, it's expensive, but they don't want to pay you. That's what that is. A fertility clinic will pay you what? What is it, $50 to bust one into a cup? I forgot how little they're paying. But they're selling it for so much. So your seed's expensive in reality. They're just not willing to pay you expensively for it because you busted it up, so they figure, well, that's just too good a deal for you. Meanwhile, they want to actually sit up and take things they want to do and then use that as a way to guilt trip you into something they wanted to do in the first place. I had your kids. Yeah, okay. Marry them and don't give them no kids. Watch what they say. But then when they do, they want to sit up and act like they did it by themselves. And they did it for you. So you owe them, so pay up. It's all manipulation. Esther Villar was really right about that. Now, if they were just honest and they said, listen, these are things that both of us enjoy. Let's get to them. This is difficult for me, but it might be easy for you. So that over there is difficult for you, but makes things easy for me. So let's trade them. If they were just upfront about that, we could say, okay, yeah, respect. We could do that. Fair exchange is no robbery. No, they want to sit up and take things they want and act like it's some big favor they're doing. Mess around and take these things that they say they don't want, or they act like just some kind of favor, and deny these things to them. No, that's a burden to you. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put you through that. And watch. So yeah, we got to have double standards for that reason. Sometimes when you hear me promoting, and this is not about a particular one double standard, but what I'm talking about is why it is that we need to have them in the first place. Because you see, most of you know, most of you understand that if you mistreat these women, really by just treating one better than you treated the others, you're probably going to have to answer for that once one knows that somebody else was treated better by you. You're going to have to answer for it, even if she's treating you worse and you're just responding in kind. You know this. See, there are already certain double standards in place. If you sit up and you hit the dating market, but you got baggage because of things that women did to you and you didn't provoke these things. One woman scammed you out of money, lied to you. Another one had you raising a kid wasn't yours. And all you've learned is this stuff. All you've learned is how bad they're going to be. Then the next ones are going to see baggage. And Melanie King actually made this confession one time to a white guy. Melanie King said to this white guy, when he said something about how they always, when they leave, they always come back. Melanie was like, that doesn't mean anything. That means to them that you're a sucker. And she even said, look, women don't have this mechanism in them that says, okay, this other woman did this to him, and this other woman did that to him, and this other woman did that to him. Let me be the one that doesn't do this to him. We don't have that mechanism. We don't have that instinct. What we say is, if these bitches did this to him and got away with it, goddamn it, I'm going to do the same thing and get away with it, or I'm done with him. And if you don't let me do it, I might even slap him for it. How dare he? You don't pick up self-respect all of a sudden when I come around the corner. That's how we men are beginning to feel, and rightly so. No, bitch, you don't start respecting yourself any more than you did before just because I came around that corner. Because if you're going to do that, you do it with some other dude. I'm not the one to do that with. The last guy was up here busting in you for free. I'm not going to accept any more difficult of a condition than what he had to deal with. Not doing it. And now some women are going to say, well, what you're saying is that women need to shape up and fly right, but just not with you. Yeah, exactly. Yes, of course, I know that's an untenable double standard. I know it doesn't make sense. The way to avoid that is to start the up off being fair and just. And not mistreating and not disrespecting the men that you don't want. That's the way to start with that, to avoid that. Because I'll tell you straight away, one of the best reasons for you to not interact with them and try to get their attention and anything like that is because they will then rub in your face all that they did for some other guy that ain't you. And you have to remember this too. If a woman has done stuff like this, like Cassie, look at what she's done. Now she has to testify under oath that she's done it in front of Alex Fine where he can see it. If she's sitting up here and saying this and Alex Fine can hear it, I'm telling you now, if Alex Fine forgives her, she would disrespect that man even more. There's no way that he's going to get any more respect from her. And these women that are telling you this, no goddamn well they're lying. Oh, he's rare. Yeah, of course he's rare because that's not rewarded. Sadia Khan, she's at least honest with you about that much. Sadia Khan, who doesn't want you to become a passport bro or SYSBM if she knows what the hell that is, that woman, that Sadia Khan, That woman will sit up and tell you that if a woman violates your boundaries and you forgive her, all she sees is that you don't have boundaries and she loses respect, and that's all it is. Nothing else. That's what Cassie Ventura is now saying about Alex Fine. When she lied to him, she at least would say, well, he doesn't know. Now she knows that he knows. The only thing that man can do to keep her respect is to leave. And she's pregnant. He's going to have to leave anyway. And when the baby gets older and asks what happened, she's not going to tell the baby the full story, and I know that. But he's going to have to find ways to send one message to the baby. My door is open. And when that baby gets older and is grown, not even a kid anymore, they're going to come and say, you weren't there. Hey, remember when I told you my door was open? There's a reason for that. Now you're old enough for me to tell you my side of the story. Oh, word? Yeah. Here's my side of it. Remember when them kids made jokes about your mom? Yeah, well, when she and I got together, I was wrong, son, because I accepted her baggage. But I didn't know all of the stuff that I needed to know at the time either. She had to testify in court, and that's how I found out how bad it really went and how much she went along with it. And you need to know, if it's a daughter, he's going to have to say to the daughter, you need to know that you better never do this to any man. You can't just let men use you and then turn around and find some other man to try to pay you back for all the other men used you for. You don't do that. Because a man has to reject that deal once he can recognize it. He doesn't have a choice. And if it's a son, he's going to have to say to the son, you cannot let these women bring this to you. If they can, they will come to you with the baggage that other men give them and ask you to pay them for that baggage. Take the baggage on for them. And this is something that even though Alex Fine is not one of us, some of y'all like to look at black folks of other nationalities and say that they not like us. Man, screw that. He ain't like us. He's still going to have to go through the same damn thing because he wound up getting with a woman that identified as one of our women, but just not our women. She identified not with her black side, but with her black female side. And that was the damn problem. And what did that lead to? Now she's just a full-blown Westernisha. It doesn't really matter what a DNA sequence is. But you understand that, see, I'll let y'all in on a little secret about the racial element to this. You already know how it is that the sisters want to be white women. And they want the deal they think white women have. And I say that for a reason. They want the deal they think they have. Y'all know about that. Are you guys ready to know the secret that goes in the opposite direction? If you're ready to know, somebody type, tell us the secret in the chat. I should make y'all go, I should say no, I'm not doing nothing until I see something in the Cash App. I should refuse to do, to tell y'all what that is until I see it in the Cash App, but I'm not going to be that dirty and that petty. Because, and shout out to him, C. Jones sent something in the Cash App earlier, last night my time. So big shout out to C. Jones for that. And as a matter of fact, let me give you the proper shout out, Mr. Jones. All right, I got 3 saying, tell us the secret. I forgot what it is, though. What was I talking about again? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that to y'all for real. I should, but I ain't going to do that to y'all for real. The secret is that sisters have been looking, that Becky and Karen and Amber have been looking at Sapphire. And because Sapphires brag about the stuff they do to us. They brag about what they do, about how they get away with it, all of that stuff. They brag about the paternity fraud. They brag about using us for money. They brag about bringing a baggage to the guy that doesn't deserve it, and then letting the guy that don't deserve nothing dump all the baggage on him, on her. And they brag about how they're using the guys that are the least deserving of being used, and they're letting the guys who deserve nothing from them use them. They'll brag about this stuff. They brag about how they get it backwards, right? Becky and Karen and Amber know this. And Becky and Karen and Amber envy them for that. That's one of the reasons that Becky and Karen and Amber are becoming less respectful and more disrespectful even towards their own men. That's what that's about. So it really don't matter what Cassie actually is genetically. The way she identified herself is how she carried on with these dudes. And when I saw Alex Fine briefly, there was nothing defective about him. I asked myself, how did she peg him as the kind of guy to do this to? Is it because he's short? Doesn't seem like it. And even that shouldn't provoke that sort of reaction in these women. What is it? And then it hit me. All it takes is just a lack of experience. I remembered what I already knew. They can peg a guy as being deserving of having to deal with the baggage and all this other stuff by nothing other than just his lack of experience with other women. It's just like Minnie F. Baby said, who was calling herself Big Bank on the Big Facts and Big Knowledge podcast. Y'all remember the one with the New Orleans accent? Oh, that grinds my mother cuss word gears. The one with the New Orleans accent talking about, well, if he a man and he really loved me, he won't fall on no hard times. He asked me to help him pay a bill, and I was like, hell no, baby. I'm out the door, baby. I don't pay no bills. That woman right there, she was sitting on the podcast talking and giving up the game like, well, you know what you do is you get you a man that look like he ain't never been with no baddies before. He don't got no experience. Yeah, that woman there. If y'all remember her, say something in the chat about how you remember her. But yeah, that chick there, that's Minnie F. Baby. That's her. She actually contributed about 3 or 4 of my confessions that I've cataloged on the Jet Black Air Lounge. Well, that woman right there was telling how you do this, and she was pretty much saying, yeah, what you do is you get the guy that ain't been with no baddies before, and I realized that's most dudes. That's normal men. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Bilal Gadzekpo. So that's most men. And if it's most men that are like that, then all they're really saying is we just gonna all smash the same few dudes that we want, and then all of the guys, all the rest of them, the vast majority, are gonna make up the ones that are inexperienced because we all conspired to keep them inexperienced. Now, I'm not telling you to get out there and get experience and violate your chastity. I'm not telling you that. What I'm telling you to do is to make sure that we learn as much as we can and share as much as we learn, so that other men don't have to get out there and get all this experience and violate their chastity and break it in order to be safe. Because they created an environment intentionally where the most chaste men were at the biggest disadvantage just for lack of knowledge. They did it intentionally. It was not an accident. They didn't stumble on this. They knew what they were doing. They created that. And so we can undo that simply by just laying it out for them. No. Myron Gaines said, get out there and get your body count of 50. That's not the double standard that we really need. You can tell women you got that double standard, but that's not the double standard we really need. That doesn't help. Why? Because it tells men to try to get a body count of 50. You're not going to get that kind of body count. Myron Gaines grew up as a Muslim in a Sudanese household, but he grew up around a white folk. Sat up and told you need to get a body count of 50. And a white Christian man came and checked him for that. He said it. The white Christian man took accountability for his own actions and then told him, you need to stop saying this. Well, you know, at some point you're going to have to take personal accountability. So he's going to sit up and throw back on the guy what he already took on his own case. On his own. Just so that he wouldn't have to take the same accountability himself for the shuck fit that he was saying. I'm with you, Israel Young Lion. I hate that dude. I hate him because he blasphemed. He blasphemed against the faith, told others to do it, and then he wants to be a white supremacist on top of that. Myron is someone you don't listen to except to see what to not do and what to not say, but he will tell you the games that women will play. That's the part where he gets that right. But yeah, Myron sat up there and said, you know, give up your chastity. You're going to pick up all kinds of diseases. Bilal, I think he's not only an agent of somebody else, I mean, of them utterance, the color of paper. I think he's also an agent of the one that hates him no matter what he does. The one that hated Adam, alayhi salam. I think he's an agent for both of them. I think so. No, Solomeo, he definitely is an agent for somebody. And I don't think he may not be a paid agent. He may not even realize what he's doing. Therefore, he's not collecting for it. But then again, he's probably collecting for it. Because I'm sorry, but when he lost his followers, he should have been homeless. And he wasn't. And it makes me think somebody came and picked up the slack. And this doesn't surprise me either, Abdullah bin Bobby. I heard about him being one too. So I was glad when he and Myron were just going at each other. Because Abba will sit up there and talk about passport bros, this, that, and the other. Well, he's not talking about them because of the inchastity. He's talking about them because they don't get Western chicks. Nobody gets Western chicks unless something's seriously wrong with you or you just have everything in life they want. He's not facing the facts. And so, anyway, make a long story short, they knew what they were doing when they created this. Punishing the chastity of men. And then, not only that, but pretty much saying you have to have enough women to agree to be exactly what we don't want to be, which is practice dummies. You got to find enough women in life willing to be your practice dummies. But we don't want to be anybody's practice dummies. That's the environment they created. Well, if you pursue enough of them, eventually, let's say you pursue enough of them and then you bed down enough of them, but you don't stay with them, eventually somebody's going to falsely accuse you. You can't go through 50 chicks like that and not be falsely accused of something you didn't do. As I stated before, you can't fornicate and just get away with it. They can't either, but you can't. So we got to have these double standards. The double standards that say things like, well, you know, if this guy fornicates with a lot of women, he's unchaste. But if you fornicate with a lot of men, you're just easy. He's wrong, but you're even more wrong. Even though that's not really the case, sometimes you got to tell them that. Because you know what? It does become more addictive for them than it does for the dudes. You think the dudes will get more addicted to it? No, the women do. A guy can get tired of having to spit game to get these broads. The guys that are truly addicted to it are the ones that don't really have to spit much game to get these broads. My cousin is a prolific womanizer. Had to at least say something to these women. And most of the time I realize that the way he gets them is one at a time. Meaning what he does is most of the time what he does is he's with one, he lets another one that he likes see him with the one he's with, then he moves on to that one. He makes each woman his game that he spits to the next one. Now he's truly addicted. And that's because the satisfaction far outweighs the difficulty through which he would have to go and the effort that he would have to take to attain it. And that's what it's like for women. They don't have to do much. And the fact that they don't have to do much is our fault. That's on us. Their pride and their assumption that we're not worth doing anything is their fault, but their ease of not having to do anything and get so much out of us is ours. We did that. So we got to have these double standards for that reason. We don't have a choice. Some double standards you may not even believe in, but you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to pretend like you do. Sometimes you got to pretend like you're just completely unfair. Hold on. Let me put this link down in here for some of you knuckleheads, because I think this one is being ignored. And as I've stated before, I don't particularly want anybody to make anything hard on themselves, but I do appreciate when I see ones and twos from various people. So I better put this link up in there shamelessly. Yeah, I don't fib a guck. I know what I'm doing. I'm also doing this because the hyenas and the misandrists and their simps don't like it. Stop putting your Cash App in the bio. No, not really. I'm not doing that. No, you stop putting yours in the bio. Because I can honestly say that for me, any of it is supplemental. I like it, but it's supplemental. For y'all, I can't say that because they can actually sit up and make a living just trashing dudes. FD Signify said, you know how much more money I could make if I went red pill? He was lying. He couldn't make that much money. When he's thinking of red pill, he's thinking of being radical. That's beyond red pill. That's just outright misogynist. Whether justified or not, that's just not right misogynist. That's his thing. All right. Shout out to Israel Young Lion for coming through. I really do appreciate that. You subscribed, so you actually covered your base already, and then you subscribed to the Jet Black Air Lounge, and then you still came through on Cash App. Thank you from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I really do appreciate that. But you've actually done more than you've done far more. Hold on, let me play your proper tribute. And so Joe Itmore's right. He makes it difficult for them around him. And it should be that. Make it difficult for those that are there because Joe Itmore, we would say that FD is worse than Myron. Most would say that except for one thing. If you're talking about purely what they're promoting, yes. For us Muslims, Myron is worse because he had a guidance system that goes beyond just what we call the red pill. He was already sitting on the solutions to this stuff from the very beginning. And he gave that up so that he could sit up and tell guys to go and get a 50 body count, and so that he could fornicate. And that's the part that makes him worse. So about these double standards, one double standard we're going to have is that if a man comes to us and tells us what some lady did, we're going to have to assume the likelihood. We're going to have to assume that he's at least not making the whole thing up. Maybe exaggerating, maybe misunderstanding something, but not making the whole thing up. We're going to have to assume that. A lady comes along and tells you something a man did to her, ask for the evidence. Ask for that. Say, well, what's the evidence? See, a cousin of mine, female cousin, told me that her husband, of whose marriage I approved, she and he were Muslim. I think he still is. But she told me he was abusive. And I told her, well, you're the blood relative. So while I'm certainly going to support your rights in this, before I say something about him being abusive, I have to see some evidence. And she showed me a screenshot of the phone conversation, the text conversation, in which he apologized for putting her unconscious. So that's real. She showed that to me. That was when I backed her up, not just to have a peaceful divorce, but I backed up her side, so to speak. Because this was not simply a case of love lost, but a case of abuse. And I saw the screenshot. When he said, I realized that you're not going to be on my side. And this is before I began to talk about gender on this channel. I actually said, the thing is, I'm not on your side because of what I saw. I asked for the evidence, and she brought it forward. And that's why. So, sometimes we're going to have these double standards and just start assuming. And that's part of why I'm sitting here telling you that while I think Alex Fine was kind of, I think he dropped his guard, and that was not too smart. It wasn't wise. I'm not going to sit up here and assume that he was just being a dumb fool for being with her in the first place. Because who the hell was going to sit up and teach, before Kevin Samuels went mainstream, who was going to teach most guys what to look for and what to avoid? You had a few personal trainers that had smashed married chicks because they're personal trainers that sat up and said, I've done this. Y'all don't need to be trusting your wives with male personal trainers. And all it takes is some muscle. And these women are willing to throw their commitments out the window. It took a few confessions from them, but in terms of actually reaching out and getting the message out there. Walaikum salam, Abdul Malik. Another A1 from day one. He and Abdullah bin Bobby are two of my oldest subscribers that are on here right now. And this one goes out to you, sir. So, getting back to the double standards, I'm going to go ahead and assume that he didn't sign up for this. He was not smart to sign up at all, but I don't think that he signed up for this. Bingo, JT 9000. That right there. All we had to choose from, before it was Kevin Samuels, all we had to choose from in mainstream media was Steve Harvey. That was it. That's all it was. And see, I think it's Manosphere Highlights Daily that he dug up an episode of some talk show from back in the 90s where this Wyatt guy with red pill awareness, but without the name, was talking about how women will say they want this and they actually want that, and now I'm getting laid again and again and again by not giving them what they say they want. And he had a male feminist, Wyatt, also sitting next to him wearing a dress in solidarity with the women. Not because he was 9AY, but because he was showing solidarity with the women. Yeah, I think it was him that dug up that episode from the 90s. I can't remember the name of the video, but Manosphere Highlights Daily, if I'm right, was the one that dug it up, and then someone else went ahead and played that episode too. It might have been MTR, maybe it was P's World, but in the end, it came down to the fact that Alex Fine would not have had as much access to this information at the time he married Cassie because it wasn't out there in the mainstream like that. You had to know where to look on YouTube. Trust me, I know, because I didn't hear nothing about no red pill till 2012. I didn't know anybody else could see what I was seeing until 2012. Do you know when I found out that there was a black manosphere that could see what I was seeing and could also see that the political leanings of the ones who could see what I was seeing were bullshit? That all that racism that came with it was crap? And that they were hypocrites because they could not tolerate what their women were doing to them, but they felt like what their ancestors did to every other race was okay? Yeah, that was 2019. No, about 2018. 2018, I began to realize that there were some guys that could see this stuff. Okay, there's the women over here, and then there are the racists over there. And the racists are right about the women, but they're wrong about race. And the women are right about race, but they're wrong about themselves. They're wrong about gender. About 2018, and even then, I thought it was only a few. I thought Angel Ramirez Jordan was one of them because I hadn't been exposed to the others. Then I found out, nope, there's Angry Man. Wait a minute, hold up, this gets deeper. There's BGS. Boy, BGS opened my eyes to a lot. And Angry Man did open my eyes to a good bit, but BGS opened it up a lot. Then there with Alan Anderson, I was like, oh man, bruh. This is excellent. So, well, the truth be told, you're not so much late JT 9000. See, I didn't hear about red pill awareness outside of the context of the Matrix till 2019. But the black manosphere, the first time I heard the word manosphere, it was in the context of the black manosphere. That for me, that was 2018, about to be 2019. But you see, we got to have a double standard because a lot of times, or certain double standards, because a lot of times it's just the right one to have. Cassie has had access to know what men want. Hell, she was serving the worst men with the worst of what they wanted. Alex Fine did not have access to know the games that these thoughts will play as long as they can get away with it. Didn't have access. It wasn't there. What you gonna blame him for not knowing? He was wrong for signing up with the baggage in general, but did he know how much of a victim she was not at the time? I doubt it, because he walked out that courtroom and was silent. He didn't walk out and defend her. He walked out and was silent despite the fact that she was pregnant. So out of a double standard that's designed to be fair, I'm going to assume that he's not a cuck. That he was underinformed, because most of us were. That's why there's such a thing as red pill rage. The rage does not come from women having agency and having to give consent and all. They act like the rage comes from women having rights. No. The rage comes from the goddamn lying. The rage comes from that. The rage comes from the deception. The rage comes from the fact that mama might have known and didn't tell you. Big sis might have known and didn't tell you. The rage comes from the fact that we all must come from a woman somewhere. And chances are we met them. And that neither she nor the women in her family had the decency to sit us the duck found and say to us, these are the things they will do, and this is how bad it gets. And as a matter of fact, you have a very high chance of them trying to do this to you, and it's not your fault. It's not because of something wrong with you. If a bunch of them are using you, it ain't because of something wrong with you, unless you just keep allowing it. It's because that's really for the work they are. So you already got a double standard. When you guys get ill-treated again and again and again, when you get lied to again and again and again, you're told, well, what are you doing? You the common denominator in all of this. Well, what does that say about you that these women keep doing you that? So you get blamed because of what other people choose to do in your case. You can't trick them out of it. You can't incentivize them out of it. So what is it about you? And then you come to find out, when they start confessing that no, it really wasn't you. That's where the rage comes from. Finding out that it's all been a deception. I was pissed when one of my subscribers told me last semester, come on now, Black, if you had 23 students and 23 of them failed, there's something wrong with you. I'm gonna say it's the professor. I was like, yeah, of course you would say that. You ain't been here. You haven't taught here. And you didn't see the class that I got. They all knew each other before because they were all taken from the same 2 sections during the summer and then put in this 1 section in front of me during the fall. They knew each other, and they come from a culture that's anti-intellectual in the first mother cuss word place. I've been here, you ain't. It's the first time I've had all of them fail, but you know what? It's also the first time I was allowed to write down that all of them failed, as long as I could prove the case, and I did. And now, see, that's the anger came from this assumption that I need to just look at myself. I already did. I spent the whole semester looking at myself, trying to figure out what I was doing, because every time I gave them something to do to practice what I taught them, they failed like I never taught them. But you know what? They were all on their phones or on their tablets. Or they were all distracted with something. Some of them were trying to distract me, and others of them were distracted with each other or with phones and tablets. The point is that none of them actually focused on fixing their fucking English, pardon my French. Not one of them improved in their English. Not a single solitary one. The ones that were well behaved and made some effort improved, but they didn't improve fast enough, because the Arab mind does not do that in the Gulf. In other countries, yeah, but in the Gulf nations, the Arab mind does not value studying that much. They don't study extra if they fall behind. If they fall behind, they don't study extra. They just say, okay, well, let me go back to studying. Yeah, but you got to make up for what you missed. Hell, you missed 2 weeks, dummy. You got to study extra for the next 2 weeks. You got to study twice as much for the next 2 weeks to catch up. Or you can study 1.5 as much for the next 4 weeks to catch up, but you got to catch up. They don't have that mindset. They all were behind, but none of them caught up. It's the same thing here. Every time you are ill-treated, and most of you have experienced this again and again and again, even when you're not even trying to get with them. It could be that you work with them and they do this stuff. You're told, well, they're all doing it to you, then what is it about you? That's why we got had these double standards. No. See, we never got a chance to learn about you until recently. So if we're being mistreated, it's you. And if you're being mistreated again and again and again, it's you, because you're the one with the choices. You have, all of this comes out from one double standard they've already had. One double standard that they have already had is, the man needs to come to me. It ain't my job to go up to no man and try to get no man. That double standard right there is the reason why we got to have the other double standards we got and that we need. And Manosphere Hall of Fame has been right about the roles that men play in this. Now, we disagree on the extent, but men have been playing a role, because dads have been set up and telling the daughters, you don't never go up to no man. Hey, dumbass. Things are changing. We've done this shit the way you said for thousands of years, if not millions. How has that worked? Because it's still falling apart. So how is that playing out? So now, dumbass dad, we got a society in which the men don't have rights, just responsibilities. The women don't have responsibilities, but they got rights, and the men still got to go to them. So we got to go and chase after them and pursue them to enslave us while we pay their bills. You stuck on stupid for an old man. We got men being old fools because they didn't track the changes. That's where the double standards come from, and the need for them. They come from the simps and the misandrists they enable. It ain't just the daughters and the moms that are on this dumb stuff. It's the simps that back them up. Manosphere Hall of Fame, and I agree on that. And every simp doesn't know he's a simp. Sometimes they're just being old-fashioned, and they actually don't even believe in letting women walk over them like that. But they see it as a part of manhood that you always go up to them. Well, it depends on what you're getting. But always? No. In our religion, it wasn't always like that. So anyway, last thing I'm going to talk about is these escapees right quick. I think. Let me check the Cash App and see if anything else came through. Dear God. Man, we got 34 listening. 34 listening. And all I'm asking you all for is like a one or one or two a piece. And we had one come through. The Lion. See, Jones came through at midnight my time, which was about 5 p.m. Eastern time zone for most of you. That was before I went live. And the Lion has come through today since this got started. And I say this, look, if you're not coming through on that, that's fine. But then you should go to the Jet Black Air Lounge and do a subscription. If you want to start with the $5 a month one, then go ahead and start with that. But it's worth 10, but you can start with 5 if you want to give it a shot. Because there you get a lot more. You get some insights. I mean, hell, you could actually find out where my son went to find his prospective wife. Israel Young Lion, I appreciate that, sir. But the thing is, you already come through from before. You've actually already done what I even requested this live stream, because you came through before. You subscribed. And you're in a position to tell them about what the Jet Black Air Lounge is, because you did that part. Now it's up to some others. And now some of you cannot, because you live in areas where you can't get Cash App unless you hack it or something like that. I'm not supposed to be able to put it on my phone. But I found an app that let me download that app and then install it and then update it. So I got lucky. But, some of you are not in the States or Canada or the UK. I'm sorry. Some of you are not in the States or the UK, so you can't. And it's not your fault. There's nothing you could do. Except to go to the Jet Black Air Lounge, and you could subscribe there. But the others, man, 1 or 2 is enough, because that tells me that this actually helps you, and it doesn't take much from you. It just adds up for me, but it lets me know that this actually helps you out. But getting back to the escapees, I'm gonna tell you all about what I do know, even though I don't know. None of us knows everything. 10 of them escaped, and they're some of the worst ones in custody in Orleans Parish. New Orleans, let's say that the Gulf Coast became its own nation, so to speak, then more than likely the top candidates to become the capital city of it would be New Orleans or Baton Rouge or Houston, because Baton Rouge is already a state capital. New Orleans is big enough to be one, and Houston is big enough to be one. But chances are it might actually wind up. Anyway, it's not going to be its own country anytime soon. Gulf Coast Negroes and white folk are a special kind of trifling. That's why I pronounced it like that. Trifling is spelled with a T. They are trifling with a capital K. Somebody spelled trifling in the chat. Unfortunately, when I heard about this, my first thought was, what lady corrections officer or law enforcement officer is responsible for this? Good job, good job, good job. Excellent. Malika and Salameo have put trifling in the chat. So my first thought is, okay, who is she? And it turned out that the sheriff stepped up, Sheriff Hudson, a sister and said, I take full accountability. I don't normally hear that. Now, actually, you spelled it right the first time, Solomeo. So I thought, wait a minute. Wow. She got up and said, I take accountability. She said, I take accountability. I can't believe it. I must be hallucinating. But nonetheless, so you got the chief of police, sheriff, attorney general, they all passing the buck. And then, this is where it got even worse. Come to find out that the reason they could pull the toilet out is because the water valve was turned off because one of the toilets was clogged. And a maintenance worker, Sterling Williams, I think his name is, who plumbs, he does the plumbing, has been arrested and booked for 10 counts of escape and an act of malfeasance. Booked into the parish prison. What the hell did he do that was that damn bad? He's working maintenance. He's been there 5 years. He hasn't done anything like this before. Nothing like this ever before. If he had a felony on his record from before, I don't think he would have been allowed to work there as a plumber. He does not wear the jumpsuit, nor does he wear a badge. And all of a sudden, because 10 inmates pull a toilet out, and then one of them writes on there, too easy, and misspells too, while they done already said that one corrections officer, apparently a lady, stepped out for some food, which allowed them time to do all of this. Now they're going to sit up and throw him under the bus. You know what this sounds like? Does this sound familiar at all? Multiple ladies involved in something, quite a few of them are sisters. A crime, and then a man somehow becomes responsible for that crime. He turned the valve off. Now, was he supposed to run that up the chain of command? Probably so. However, he sat up and he, two things that he said, and neither one of these things should be ignored. He said he was threatened with a shanking by one of the most violent of them. So he did it. And these are dudes in there that got their buddies in there with him. So if he's sitting up here working there, and he's threatened, and he doesn't do it, that means somebody else. It's not going to be the one that threatened him. It's going to be somebody else that comes up and punctures him. Now, some of the guys are in there for attempted capital crimes, let's say. One just got sentenced for a capital crime, and he was supposed to be transferred to the Department of Corrections. So there's already that going on. Now, he says that he was threatened. Then later on he said, well, yeah, I mean, they say stuff like that, but it's prison. Inmates say things like that. I turned the water off because there was a clogged toilet. Either way it goes, it doesn't seem like he committed a crime unless he did it under force. The escapes are not on him. That's not the case. Not only that, but even though I'm not a plumber, I do understand that if you turn the water off to a particular toilet because it's clogged or whatever the case is, and by the way, there may have been another clogged toilet, but the one they pulled out was not clogged. But if you turn the water off, there's still water in the pipes. If you disconnect a toilet, either people have to flush every toilet after that valve until there's no more water, or you're going to have still some leftover water from the pipes going everywhere once you remove one of those toilets. Those are the options you got. I know that from physics, not from being a plumber. So if that is the case, I got to ask, how is it that they were able to pull this toilet out with no water flooding the place and alerting somebody that there was water all over the place? Matter of fact, why is it that he was not able to simply go to one of the officers, because he ain't an inmate? What they gonna do? Stab him for snitching? If he's threatened and he goes and snitches, so what? It's not even snitching, really. He's not an inmate. They're threatening to stab him. He goes and tells one of the guards. What this test says to me is that there may not have been a guard around, which means that he was left in there, not an inmate, but left in there, locked in. That's my theory. It's just a theory. I admit that. But what I do understand is that he's a maintenance worker who either shut the water off because you got a clogged toilet, and running it up the chain of command could have allowed a flood of sewage, or he turned the water off because he was threatened. And if he did that, that means he was not able to go to someone and say, listen, I was just threatened with a stabbing. That's what the hell that means to me. So apparently you got several people that are going to have to take this fall unless they could just put it on him. And he's a black man, so why the hell not? And one of the reasons why we can easily say this is because, number one, as soon as we heard about it, all of us were like, okay, who's the female guard? Which one of the inmates was she smashing? That's the first thing that went through our minds because of the previous stories that have come out like this. I mean, hell, an older white deputy in Alabama, I think, walked an inmate out on the day she was going to retire. She's about to retire from the job, sit at home, chill out, collect the check. She walked an inmate out that she had fallen in love with, and they just ran off. Dear Lord. Acting like she gonna take him to court, and he ain't even got no court date. Vanished. He was caught. I think she passed away in a gunfight, if I'm not mistaken. But you understand why I'm getting at. And these are two Wyatts. I'm talking Wyatt Alabamans. When they talk, you hear banjos playing. So we heard stories like this. So when these 10 inmates escaped, and they were super violent already, at least according to the charges and allegations, and one conviction, we were like, okay, you got who's the boom shika jail guard or jail corrections officer that was supposed to be keeping them in there. They were smashing one or two of them, one or more, just because they're no good niggas, criminals. Somebody, who is it and why? That's all it is. So we're sitting up there and we're looking at this and saying, oh man. I mean, it's plain as day to us, right? And then we come to find out that it's even worse than that. We don't hear anything about any of them smashing. Nothing like that. Just apparently One of them went and stepped out to get some food. Others weren't checking surveillance. And so therefore, we got what we got. All right, so Prop MP. Shouts out to Prop MP for coming through on the Cash App from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. So it's been, apparently somebody does care. And the thing is, each one that has come through has sent in more than what I've asked any one person to send. But I really do appreciate that. Y'all are looking out for your mans. Not your boy, but your mans. So when we heard about this, all of us had certain ideas in mind because of what we'd heard before. So our biases were not, even though it turned out to not really be the case, our biases still, in fact, are justified. It just didn't apply here. But another bias did apply here. Whole lot of sisters about to get checked for this. And granted, the funny thing is that the jail was in fact understaffed, and you had dysfunctioning locks already, or malfunctioning locks. How you gonna have a jail or a prison with malfunctioning locks in the first place? Surveillance cameras, but ain't nobody checking, and it gives these inmates long enough. It gives them long enough to sit there, pull open a door, pull out a toilet, and then file up one by one to fit through a hole in the wall to get to the loading dock, while they also have blankets that allow them to go over the fence without cutting themselves on the wire. Carrying these blankets that would allow them to do this. And I'm going to tell y'all something about the Gulf Coast because I grew up there. And I spent a good bit of time visiting New Orleans as a kid and sometimes as an adult. The Gulf Coast has a special kind of criminal. That's why I don't call New Orleans, New Orleans. I call it Nig Orleans. That's not because I view us as niggas. It's because that's how they view themselves. It's like a big Tarzan movie. Because they believe that they're supposed to act like the black folks depicted in the Tarzan movies, like savages. That's why it was, you all heard about the Zulu parade in Mardi Gras and how the actual Zulu in South Africa said, that does not represent us. Stop that. And they were like, it's our culture, it's a tradition. Yeah, fuck the shuck up. We don't care. That culture, that tradition pretty much only goes back to emancipation. Now, when it began, when it started, it wasn't malicious. It was actually a way just to express pride in their African origin. That's how it got started. The problem with it is that they didn't have access back then to read about how the Zulu actually dressed and what it was in their culture they sought to imitate. So they wore grass skirts every Mardi Gras. Carried some spears around. That's all they knew. Nowadays, with not only the internet, but social media and ChatGPT and South Africa being very well wired for the internet, they could have found out more. They never updated these customs and traditions. They got started out of ignorance. So the Zulus were right. The actual Zulus in South Africa were right. That don't represent us. If you want to pay tribute, we need to have a talk so that you'd actually be paying tribute where you're trying to do it. Or just rename it. But that's what they thought, because that's what they saw. That's the mindset of black Nig Orleans. Unfortunately, it's like that. So the criminals there also like to brag about how smart they are as criminals. But they're not that smart. They apply all their brain power to being crooks and being criminals, but they don't apply their brain power enough to actually beat the system, which is what they're trying to do. They don't think ahead. So the reason that these guys got as far as they did was because of the cracks in the system, because that's just how we tend to function anyway. And I can tell you that the Gulf Coast of the U.S. is very gynocratic, very matriarchal. Very much so. That's the truth of the matter. And they're very backwards in a lot of ways. Even the white folk are backwards in many ways. But that, boy, you add the gynocracy prides itself on the dysfunction. That's why the guys down there act the way they do. That's who raised them. That's how they function. Terrence Gangster Williams was sitting up in Angola, and he decided to snitch on a bunch of dead folks. That's how we got out. But he came from New Orleans. He came from some of the worst projects there. And the thing about the projects there in New Orleans is that they've been real. I mean, I've heard they've somewhat calmed down since Katrina, but they were outright jungles from before Katrina. And I know because there was a time when my mom had to do some interviews. Now they were only audio recorded, just audio recorded interviews, and it involved going into these projects to interview someone specific and then some others that might have agreed to be interviewed. While she was in the process of doing that, you had NOPD that was there for security. They were nervous because they knew they were not supposed to be in these projects. That's the funny thing. It's within their jurisdiction, but they're not supposed to be there, and I'm saying that with air quotes. Sure enough, a gunfight broke out about a block away. The NOPD was being aimed at. So one of them grabbed my mom, ducked behind the car, told her, listen, y'all throw your stuff in the car and get out. We're going to hold them off for a few more minutes and then we're going to leave. You're going to leave? Yes. That's how it was. My mom got in her car, drove off. Fortunately, no bullets hit her. They were aiming at the cops anyway. That's the funny thing. They weren't aiming at the interviewers, but at the cops. And then after my mom got a few blocks away, she was passed up by the police officers in their cruisers with the sirens and the flashers on, going away from the gunfight, not to it. That's who called the shots in certain parts of New Orleans back then, according to the story she told me. That them projects were just that damn bad, effing jungles, lawless just about. Criminals that have been locked up in the Orleans Parish prison, as they call it, are used to being locked up on capital crimes, capital charges. You know what I mean by that? Being able to make bail or get in touch with one of their boys on the out, tamper with the witnesses because the witnesses are not that well, they used to not be that well protected, and then just beating the charges, beating the case. Yeah, that's real. That's what happened. They were used to that. When Katrina happened to New Orleans and the Gulf Coast in its entirety, and many of them went to Houston, a lot of them wound up in the Harris County jail and were not being let out. They were used to not sitting in jail for long stretches at a time, and they were not being let out. What you mean I gotta stay? Yeah, you're here on a capital, you're here on some serious charges. Your bail hearing is not going to be anytime soon, and we're going to get the witnesses somewhere safe. They were not used to that. They had not dealt with this before. That's New Orleans for you. And so, yeah, I mean, we got to start looking at this and start saying, in a nutshell, that this incident is not only an indictment on a particular region. It is not only an indictment on a particular pattern in law enforcement. It's not just that. It is an indictment on a gynocracy for our people. That's what this is an indictment on. I'm telling you that this is an indictment on gynocracy. We can't afford it. Never could. It's not something we can sit around and take lightly. We're going to have to look at the whole gynocracy and say, hell no, this won't go. It's not, and I'm not sitting up telling you that women are worthless. I'm not saying stuff like this. I'm not a misogynist. I'm married to a good woman. I was raised by a good woman. This is part of the reason why I'm so intolerant of the shuck fit of the other ones, of the hyenas. I don't tolerate this stuff because I know they don't just have to be this way. I haven't even read Esther Villar's book. I've just gotten snippets of it. But when I read that, I said, okay, you know what? They don't have to be this goddamn dishonest. They don't even have to be this damn mysterious. No, go ahead and spill that. And that's also why it is that I'm so intolerant of the secrecy. No, whatever the hell women don't want us to know is what the hell we have a right to know. That's first. Start with the ones in our family. Oh, you got Instagram? Oh, you got Snapchat? Okay, just let me know what the accounts are. And don't hide me from seeing them. Oh, you got friends? Okay, that's cool. What are these friends like towards dudes? How do they treat them? Do they just like leave them alone? That's fine too. Are they just fair and just and polite with them? That's fine too. If she's always horny, that's fine as long as she's always controlling it. Would she like for me to go and look for a husband for her? Or her dad? That's fine too. Oh, but this one over here believes that she has a problem. This one over here has a problem with paternity verification. This one over here believes that men shouldn't understand women, and this one over here believes that if men understood women, they burn things down, and this one over here believes in being mysterious, even to the men that she says she loves. No. You can't hang out with them because they're dangerous, and they don't even hide it. Not only that, but this is really an indictment against them being in positions of authority over us, because it's exhausting to them. That's why that corrections officer that stepped away to get the food, they kept saying she. So even if it turns out to be a he, when they were first talking about it, they were saying she. They kept saying she stepped away to get some food. I can understand to a certain extent what the reason is. She's got the job. Now that's a job, but she's tired. She's sick of having to deal with not only male criminals that are locked up and can't get none. Not only that, but N19 Orleans criminals. Unruly, rowdy as hell. And that's part of the reason why it is. Honestly, man, that whole messiness, bro, that's why I can't stand the New Orleans accent right now. Sick of it. Minnie F. Baby's accent triggers me. And it's because of what you associated with. You don't hear that accent in classy women there. I've been in, I spent time in New Orleans. There are you have Huxtable type women there, sisters. They don't have that accent. If they do, it's thin. Now in Lafayette, they have a similar but different accent, but their accent does not go hand in hand with ratchetry. In New Orleans, you hear that accent. If she's not ratchet, she knows someone that is and is close to them. That's what it is out there. I wish it was not that simple, but it's that simple. That's how they act. And that's that accent is a marker of that. It's one of the ways they know each other. Oh no, baby, I don't go easy on these men. That's what that accent says. Oh no, baby, I don't date men that don't have bodies. Oh no, baby, I check my man's paperwork before I go on a date with him. And he can't be no snitch either. Oh no, baby, I don't date men that stay out of jail too long. That ain't no real man. That's what it's a signal to each other about that. And I can tell you that they're extra messy, and they're a large part of why it is that the culture there does not change. I remember once one time I visited because my mom was hospitalized there. She was transferred from where we live, or where she lived. I was living in Atlanta at that time, but she was transferred from where she lived to the one in New Orleans for special treatment. And it worked. Alhamdulillah, I did. And when she was there, I remember I flew into that airport. And the thing I remember about it was that my dad, my brother, and I went out to grab lunch, and one of the reasons we did was because we didn't want her to be tempted to eat something that wasn't healthy. So we're actually going to get something that was healthy and bring some of it back, some salads and some fruits, and then bring some back to supplement the hospital food, which was probably not good, but at least it was healthy. But as we were on the street, we heard this crazy brother just screaming. He was just walking and just screaming at nobody. And I remember my dad saying, New Orleans is a great place to see a lot of black people, but a bad place to get a first impression. So I'm about to end this, man, but I was going to tell y'all that, I wanted y'all to know this about that particular region, the Gulf Coast, but especially New Orleans. New Orleans is like that. The negativity is considered to be a part and parcel of the culture. New Orleans was Nickfus, Tennessee before Nickfus was Nickfus. To give you an example, how trifling Memphis is known to be, yeah, New Orleans had them beat a long time before that. At one point, it was the epicenter of negativity. That's the thing about New Orleans, and I wanted y'all to know that about not only that, but I also wanted y'all to know this about the sistren in New Orleans. One thing they like to do is, and they love to do this in the summer, especially when it's already hot and it's muggy and people are irritable if they're outside for long. What they like to do is sit at a crosswalk and wait, and then they see when the light is about to turn green for the traffic, and then they walk across the street real slow just to make the lights miss, just to make the cars miss the green light. And it was one time when I was in that traffic. This was in the late 90s, and I was in that traffic. I remember the car, I remember the heat, I remember all that. AC, all that. I was there. And what I remember, about this was that I was a little ticked about what she was doing, but I know she wasn't doing it just to me because, in all honesty, I I saw her when she was getting ready to walk. I thought, I hope she doesn't wait till the light's about to. This bitch waited till the light's about to turn green. Damn. She just started walking and it turned green while she was there. And look at it, just slowly walking. And I wondered why nobody honked. And so I looked over at the side to see what it was. And some of her woadies with mouths full of gold teeth were just standing on the side, just mean mugging all of the cars. These ninjas were going to shoot whoever honked at her. And she did this for fun. This was entertainment. But they were going to shoot whoever honked at her. Probably would have ran up and robbed that car. And whoever was behind them. If they had done something like that, they were going to take out the witnesses because that's how they function there. This wasn't some isolated side street either. That's how bad it's been there. So they play a major role in the effery and the ratchetry and the BS and the criminal culture. They play a major role in that. That's New Orleans for you. And Katrina did not wipe away all that stuff, not all of it. And so these very ladies that have demanded a certain level of badness in their men, wickedness in their men, are now calling the shots there, especially in the executive branch of the government. You guys might remember a story that I told you all about how some of my mom's friends had a daughter. Let me put this back in the chat right quick because some of y'all done forgot already. But I might have told you all, I know I did actually mention how, and this was years ago I mentioned it, but I mentioned how some of my mom's friends had a daughter. And now one of the daughters had a crush on me until I found out that she had one and I gave her a chance. Then she changed her mind. But the other daughter, older, a little bit cuter, got married. She became a prosecutor. And she got married to a no good street ninja. And you know what the street ninja was doing? She took her work home with her. Here she is, educated, prosecutor, all that. She took her work home with her. And this dude that should have never been able to go on a date with her, let alone marry her against her parents' wishes, was going through her files sneakily. She didn't discover this for a long time. Going through her files, finding out who was being investigated by law enforcement. Going to them and then saying, listen, man, for the right price, I got some information for you. And he was using this knowledge to sell to them so that they could beat the system. Hey, man, look, you about to get raided. You need to move your stuff on out. They done already planned a raid for Thursday so they can get all the law enforcement together, cover all the bases. You need to go ahead and move all that stuff out. Just go ahead, bro. Go catch up with the other one. Hey, man, look. You being investigated. You need to go ahead and move out the jurisdiction, go somewhere else. So he was sitting up here tipping off the ones that were being investigated. Hey, man, look, they about to pick you up because they think that you know something about another crime. Go ahead and get your alibi together. He was doing this, undermining her work. And when all of a sudden these investigations became unproductive, they traced it back to her, called her in the office, and said, who the hell have you been leaking these investigations to? And that's when it hit her. The only one that had access to any of that were her colleagues at work and her husband. This is a New Orleans chick that grew up Huxtable. She wasn't even coming up in the hood, bro. See, a lot of us are talking about how these Spelmanites got really bad with wanting Tupac in the suit in the 2000s. Y'all might have heard some people talking like that. Bruh, in New Orleans, the Huxtable chicks were looking for that kind of guy in the 90s. And when they graduated, the ones that my parents knew, graduated in the late 90s and early 2000s. Their friends were coming up. Their friends were coming up and telling, it was sad, man, but their friends were coming up and telling my mom, look, we need to introduce your daughter to, my daughter to your son. Well, why is that? Well, see, we need to do that because she's out here dating these thugs. That's what she wants. She's dating these thugs. And she said the only way that she's not going to do that is if we find somebody that plays for the NFL. I don't play for the NFL, and I never did. Never did. And I know because my mom would say to me, look, would you have been interested in dating so-and-so? And I'd be like, I probably would have. But it's too late now. Because see, at this point, I lived in Atlanta. And I just wasn't interested in long distance. Now, that probably wasn't the smartest move either. All of them were wrong. Trying to date in Atlanta was wrong. Trying to date on the Gulf Coast was wrong. Either way. But what I'm saying to you is if they were ahead of that, and they were at the head of this particular trend of wanting no good ninjas, and only no good ninjas and nobody else. That's them. That's the environment and the backdrop in which these 10 escapes happened. And I wanted y'all to understand that. It was the first Memphis. It was the first Baltimore. It was the first Detroit. It was the first Atlanta. It was the first Houston. And at the time that it was getting to be this way, a lot of black folk in other parts of the Gulf Coast thought it was cute. And the only thing that made a lot of black folks along the rest of the Gulf Coast mad is if you said that they were living in New Orleans shadow. No, bro. See, we got our own thing going too. And what they meant was we got our own crime. That's what they meant. We got our own streets and we got our own hoods. Yeah, they do. Now, these places aren't living in New Orleans shadow anymore, especially Baton Rouge. But these areas initially only had one problem with New Orleans being New Orleans, and that was that they didn't have the same reputation. That was it. Especially Houston, Baton Rouge. They were some of the worst about it. There's some YouTube channel series. It was a long time ago. It was actually a DVD series, something like From Hood to Hood, something like that, where all these guys did was take their camera and just drive into these ghettos and these hoods. And then people would start what white supremacists call a chimp out. Like I said, I don't see us that way, but that's how they saw themselves. You know that the most bad neighborhoods into which they went were in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. The most. Now they went into Jackson, St. Louis, these other places, but the most bad neighborhoods they went into were in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And those dudes acted the monkey for real because they thought that's what they're supposed to do. I kid you not. The fact that they were able to drive in there, especially the bad neighborhoods in New Orleans, and do this was largely because in those neighborhoods, they were willing to let these guys go there because they knew this was their chance to be on camera acting a monkey. And so many gun charges were brought against felons who were not supposed to have firearms because of that DVD. Some of y'all might remember it. I might have had the title wrong, but some of y'all might remember that story. I don't think it got started in New Orleans, but that's where a lot of the volume of their videos came from. That's where that came from. Not exclusively. I'm not trying to tell that lie. But what I'm saying is that it came down largely to that. Yeah, hood to hood. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Abdullah bin Bobby. And LOM, you're right about that, man. It is disgusting. That's what they thought about themselves. See, in other places, there were certain stereotypes about black folk you were not supposed to believe, even if you were in the hood. In New Orleans, and by extension, neighboring Gulf Coast areas, that was not the case. No, whatever negative stereotypes that there were about black folk, you were supposed to believe them. There was no challenging them. So, the funny thing is that black folk took pride in being scary to white folks out there. But they never used that for revolutionary means past emancipation. Some people say, well, y'all have a rich history of fighting against, and to a certain extent, yeah, the Gulf Coast has a rich history of fighting against depression, but it's degenerated. In all honesty, y'all want to know the truth, man? Y'all remember when NWA started coming out and people on the East Coast were saying, man, that is trash. They might have talent, but what they're promoting is nothing but just pure de-jiggable trash. Y'all might remember that. You know what it was on the Gulf Coast? Yeah, man. And even though you didn't have gangs like that on the Gulf Coast, the gang culture wasn't like that there. A lot of cats, and it's not because a lot of guys in California came from Mississippi and Texas and Louisiana. That's not the only reason this happened, but that's one of them. But the other stuff was just that these Gulf Coast guys identified with being a jigaboo ass nigga. That's what they identified with. They just said, yeah, man, that's real life right there. If you're rapping about, and even though we could hear East and West Coast music on the Gulf Coast, if you rapped about something positive, it was seen as unrealistic. Okay, I feel good, but that's not real, though. That's not real. The only way you were seen as even being real is if you talked about nothing other than nigger ratchetry. Cube was popular on the Gulf Coast, but he had to start with NWA before he could come out with America's Most Wanted death certificate and start talking conscious. If he had not, he would not have been able to be popular at all. Some of this, let's take a look at what you might call, I think we could call it HPSE. Hyper-prioritization of street experience. That's a phenomenon that we have. HPSE. Hyper-prioritization of street experience. That's something that's something that comes out of the Gulf. That's why it is that in Nigga America today, right now, if you didn't start off in the streets, you can't be a motivational speaker to the youth. No, you got to start off in the hood. You got to go do all the dirt, get busted, do a bid. Then you can say, okay, I'm going to get my life right, get my life together. Don't learn how to read and write, though. Don't do that. And don't sound like you learn how to read and write, because then you meet the Malcolm X standard of reform, and that's just too white. Don't do that. But, you maintain the affectations of your former nigger lifestyle, and then you can go and speak to the youth. because you can still nigger swagger your way onto the stage behind the microphone and so-called speak their language. Their language is really nothing other than, I didn't live a life where I avoided this shit. I went through it and now I'm standing here. And if you go through it and survive it, you can stand here where I am and talk to your own crowd and get your own speaker's fees. That's not the message you need to give to them. The whole undermining of a message of avoiding the sugar knit from the very beginning is a Gulf Coast phenomenon. It's not just New Orleans, but they led in that stuff. That's what I wanted y'all to know and understand, and that's the backdrop against which these escapes happen. It's not the first time that you've had some major corruption going on and a major systemic failure like this. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. It's not like that at all. Louisiana as a whole is known for corruption, known for political corruption. Some people joke and they say state governments hold other states together, but the federal government is what holds Louisiana together. People have joked about that before. And maybe it's true. But I wanted you all to understand the backdrop against which that happened. I hope that that helps. And I really mean it when I tell you all thank you, and I appreciate this. And I do want y'all to hit that share button. Before I get up out of here, one last big shout out to Passport OG. Thank you from the bottom of my black heart, from the depths of my black mind, for coming through on Cash App. And if you have not done so, if you didn't come through on the Cash App today, don't worry. I'm not a beggar. I actually like to offer something in exchange, but you should go to the Jet Black Air Lounge. You absolutely should go to the Jet Black Air Lounge and do a subscription, whichever one. But if you go to the first class, which is only $10 a month, you get everything. There's nothing that you don't get. We're already up to like 73, I think, confessions. Yeah, 73 confessions by misandrists and ratchet broads about the games they play. That alone, in and of itself, is good information for you to share with young brothers. And I do it because even though some of the stuff you could still see for free now, some, not most of it, what I do is I catalog it in a way that if they take it down, there's a copy of it that's going to be right there, and you can always go right back to it and say, no, this broad said this on that date, and you need to know that. No, you know what? She admitted to this on that date. You need to know that. And so, yeah, it's worth it. It is definitely worth it to go in and subscribe to that. Additionally, I reserve some insight on what it's like living here for that particular channel now. You go there. I shouldn't say channel, but that particular platform. You go there and you can find out a little bit more. So, I mean, you might even be able to see, soon you might be able to see what it's like at certain restaurants, certain eating options that you may not have known were available. Some of them you know, some you don't. You can find out exactly, and this is good for the Muslims, you can find exactly what my son wants to find the lady he plans to marry. And even which part of that particular country is probably the better one to stay in. And you can find out where my wife and I will be traveling a week from, in about another week plus a few more days. Then she and I will travel, inshallah, and you'll be able to find out where it is. And what I discover, what I discover, you'll discover. So it's worth it there. And there may come a point where I start to put certain videos on there and only there. There'll be more and more over time. There'll be more and more videos that will be available there, and they will not be available here on YouTube. And there will still be things available here on YouTube, but as time goes on, especially over the summer when I get more time, there'll be more there and only there. First class has access to all of it. Business class has access right now to most of it. The amount or the percentage to which business class will have will go down though. And that's not anything personal. It's just going to be an increase in the amount of material for the first class. So Shouts out also to Gregory Scotland for coming through. Thank you so much from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind for coming through on the Cash App. I mean that. And also, for those of you that are in here that have already subscribed to the Jet Black Air Lounge, whichever class, business or first, hit me back. You know, let me know some of the things you might want to see. Go ahead. And shouts out again to Malika Mibane, Gail at Night, Gregory Scotland. Thank you all for listening. I really do hope this helps and it benefits. And black heterosexual, non-selective male power, just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. And as always, keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.